Alright guys, I am back yet again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 2 of my Lyrical Monasterio Wilista deck. So version 2, everything through the additional special set, so through Festival Booster 2023 for this deck. And this deck has received pretty much an overhaul, a very large upgrade for this deck. Of course, Wilista herself has her new DressUp form. And we have also received a new gym card for this deck that is ridiculously good. And actually allows this deck to be a lot more consistent now, as well as potentially being able to do up to 5 attacks in one turn. So as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first with the ride deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is Brilliance in the Ore Wilista. So when she's rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Same old starter skill. Next, for the Grade 1, we have Proof of Hard Work Wilista. So she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rode upon, you put 1 card from your hand into your soul. To search your deck for up to 1 gym card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this will let you search out any gym card you want from your deck. So it is a ±0 since you have to shove 1 from hand into the soul first, but it guarantees that gym order in your hand and gives you an extra soul resource out of it. So no card advantage gain, but overall still pretty nice. And then her second auto ability is when she's on Rearguard Circle. It says when you play an order, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So she never really ends up on Rearguard Circle, so that second ability isn't really used for anything. So next up for the Grade 2, we have Expanding World Wilista. So she has her auto ability that says once per turn, when you play a gym card, you draw a card. So you'll be guaranteed to have that gym card in your hand thanks to the Grade 1 Wilista skill. So you just play that on turn 2, and the gym card should let you draw, and then this ability will let you draw again. So just some free card advantage, always a nice thing. And then again, she has a continuous ability when she's on Guardian Circle that says for every 2 gym cards in your drop, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. So again, she never really ends up on Guardian Circle, so another not used skill. So then lastly for the Grade 3, we have Wilista's new form, Festa Magica Wilista. So this is her Easter dress-up form. So she has her dress-up ability that has her name also be treated as Prismagica Wilista. So that is very important in this deck since some of our key support cards are name-locked to OG Wilista. Her being treated as the same name will let their effects still be active. So then she also has her auto ability that says when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can discard a card from hand to choose a gym card from your soul or drop and put it into hand. So an extremely helpful ability letting you loop any gem you want every turn, either from your drop or your soul, which all the gems go to your soul after you play them, and then you have to soul blast them out for Wilista's ability. So whether it's still in your soul or in your drop, you can get it back just by discarding 1 from your hand. So again, no card advantage is gained from this, however, it does guarantee that you have access to your gem every turn. So being able to loop that key combo piece is very, very important. And then she also has her Activate ability that says once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 gym card and perform all of the following according to the card name of the card Soul Blast for this cost. So if you Soul Blast out Everlasting Sapphire, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck to choose up to 2 unit cards from among them, call them to Rearguard Circle, and shuffle the deck. And if you Soul Blast out True Hearted Ruby, this unit gets power plus 15,000 until end of turn. So this ability is very similar to the OG Wilista's abilities, except it's now combined into 1 skill. However, thanks to the new gym card that we have in this deck, which is Crossing Illumirays, that card has its name also be treated as Everlasting Sapphire and True Hearted Ruby. So if you can get a copy of Illumirays into your soul and then Soul Blast it out for this cost, it will actually trigger both of these abilities in one go. So you will be able to get the superior call from the top 5, as well as the power up to your Vanguard. Now, when compared to OG Wilista, you are giving up the slight guard restrict that she would normally gain from the Ruby part of this ability that would block your opponent's intercepts, as well as giving up the power gain to the up to 2 units that you superior called from the Sapphire part of the ability. So you're giving up some small portions of her old skill, but in exchange it is much more resource efficient now since you only have to Soul Blast out 1 gem card as opposed to 2. And another fringe benefit of this is when you check the top 5 and call 2, the other 3 get shuffled back into your deck instead of going to the drop zone like they did before. So that can help mitigate some of the deck outs issues, although this deck can still be prone to deck outs if you're not careful. But yeah, being able to shuffle those back in is still better, so you don't like end up milling some of your good triggers or anything. So overall, a very nice upgrade for Wilista herself, letting you, of course, preserve some of your resources, as well as being able to get your combo pieces a lot more consistently. So very, very nice Vanguard. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the grade 3s, we of course have our 3 additional copies of Festa Magica Wilista, the double frame rare slight alternate art with her winking expression that is there for our Persona ride purposes. So next up, we also have 3 copies of the original Prismagica Wilista. So I have 1 copy of a regular triple rare art, and then 2 copies of her alternate art, LSR. So she has 2 activate abilities. First one says you can Soul Blast 1 True Hearted Ruby, and until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 15,000, and your opponent cannot intercept. And then she has her second activate ability that says you can Soul Blast 1 Everlasting Sapphire to look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, and choose up to 2 unit cards from among them, call them to open rearguard circles, and discard the rest. And those units get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this is the OG Wilista form. Now, this card isn't nearly as important in this deck as it was before. In fact, it's mostly just here to be shoved into your soul for the name in order to activate some of our other abilities. Now, thanks to the DressUp skill, you can Persona ride back and forth between either form of Wilista, although generally speaking, you only want to ride into Festa Magica instead of Prismagica. So this is kind of just here to be a backup in those situations. If you do have to Persona ride into this card, you will need 2 gems in your soul to take full advantage of her abilities, which Illumirays can pay for either one of these skills costs, but since it's 2 separate skills, you do have to pay the costs separately. So you'll need either 2 copies of Illumirays or 1 copy of Illumirays and one of the other gems in your soul, which I am still running 1 copy each of the original True Hearted Ruby and Everlasting Sapphire in this deck. So you will need 2 gems in total in any combination of those in order to use both these abilities. And like I said before, you do gain the little extra benefits of having the slight guard restrict and the power up to the units that you called. So having to ride into this isn't the worst thing in the world. The deck can still pretty much function like it normally would. It'll just be a little bit more resource heavy, and you will need to already have a copy of a gem in your hand to play that turn, if you need to play one. So a little bit more clunky, but it can be a backup if you still want to get that Persona ride. But yeah, the primary function of this card is to just shove it into your soul, either with your ride deck skill or with Trixie's ability, in order to take full advantage of crossing Illumiray's restand skill. So yeah, that's mostly what this card is here for at this point. So next up, we got 4 copies of Scintillate Rays Ophelia. So she has her auto ability that says at the end of the battle, your Prismagica Wilista on Vanguard Circle attacked. You perform all of the following according to the cards you Soul Blasted for your Vanguard's ability or played this turn. So if you Soul Blasted or played True Hearted Ruby, this unit gets power plus 15,000 until end of turn. And if you Soul Blasted or played Everlasting Sapphire, you can Counterblast 1 and put a back row center rearguard on the bottom of your deck, and stand this unit and shuffle your deck. So this is still a very important offensive card in this deck, allowing you to get a 4th or maybe 5th attack if you can use Illuminate's ability to restand one of your other rear guards as well. So, very vital offensive card. Now, again, it relies on you soul blasting and or playing both Ruby and Sapphire, so one copy of Illuminate's will meet this entire skill's condition, so you will be able to use both parts of this skill with just one copy of Illuminate's being either soul blasted out or played that turn. So she powers herself up and restands herself. Now, it is a -1 to get that restand since you have to send your back row center rear guard to the bottom of your deck. But you can send anything you want, so if you have a trigger in your hand, you can plop it behind your Vanguard and then shuffle a trigger back into your deck. So you can potentially reuse a heal or get your over trigger back into circulation or something. So yeah, overall definitely one of the key cards in this deck. And like I mentioned before, she is name locked to Prismagica Wilista, but thanks to the DressUp ability, she will still be active when you're on Festa Magica as well. So then lastly for the grade 3s, we have one copy of Attentive Deep Love, Adelie. So she has her auto ability that says when you play True Hearted Ruby, if your Vanguard is Prismagica Wilista, until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 10,000, and you can play an additional order this turn. So this card is not necessary by any means. I did keep her in as a one of, mostly just to be a beat stick, and because this deck, or this card rather, was so important to this deck before that I couldn't just bring myself to completely drop her out of the deck entirely. So I did keep her in as a one of. She can be a 23k beat stick on her own, which is pretty good. Now, the second part of this ability does kind of conflict with Illuminate's now, since Illuminate's does block you from playing any other orders in the same turn, and that skill takes precedence over her skill. So, if you play Crossing Illuminate's, you won't be able to play another order no matter what. Now, like I said, I am running one copy of the original True Hearted Ruby in this deck. So one niche play you can do if you have a copy of Illuminate's and a copy of the original Ruby in your hand, you could play True Hearted Ruby first, which will trigger this card's ability to power her up and let you play another order, and then you play Illuminate's second, which will trigger her ability again, so she'll gain another 10k, and you won't be able to play any other orders that turn, but you'll get to use all of Illuminate's effects, and Adelie will be at a minimum of 33k at that point, and then you can potentially restand her with Illuminate's skill as well. So that is definitely more of a niche play. It doesn't come up very often, but it is pretty cool if you can pull it off. Now, if you don't want to do that and you want to just replace this card with anything else, you can. If you do want another good beat stick, there is a grade 2 card that's can gain 10k. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. Romana or something like that. But anyway, she can be a 20k beater if you played both Ruby and Sapphire that turn. So if you want to replace Adelie with that card, you can go that route to have, you know, one less shieldless card in the deck. But I did keep one copy of Adelie, mostly because I wanted to. So that is all of the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 3 copies of Full Marks for Exhilarating Energy, Trixie. So she has her continuous ability that says if you played a gym order this turn, and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So she should be a 15k beater, and you should be playing a gym order every turn. So if your opponent's at grade 3, she should always get that power up. And then she also has her auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Wilista in its card name, you can put a card from hand into your soul to look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 2 grade 3 cards with Wilista and their different original card names from among them, reveal them, put them in the hand, and shuffle the deck. And if you did not reveal any cards, you draw a card. So this ability is very similar to Shibanu's from the Laronaral deck I just did recently. So you have to shove one from hand into soul, and then you check the top 5 for your Willistas. So if you find a copy of both Festa Magica and Prismagica Wilista, then you can add both those to your hand. So this will essentially become a free +1. If you find only one of your Wilista forms, you can add it to your hand, and it's just a ±0, but you got a Persona Ride copy into your hand. Or if you don't find any Willistas, then of course you can just shuffle and draw. So at which point it's basically just a glorified hand filter. So a fairly decent skill, helping you get your Willistas into hand can be very important. And of course it does let you put a card from hand into soul, so it gives you that extra soul resource. And this is a way to get a grade 3 Wilista card into your soul on turn 3 in order to take advantage of Illuminaray's full skill, which we'll go over here in a moment. So that's the main point of this ability, is to get either your other Wilista form or one of the original copies of Ruby or Sapphire into your soul, since those cards are not a ton of use in your hand anyway. So being able to cycle those cards out of your hand and replace them with potentially something better from your deck is still a very important skill. So overall, still a very nice card. So then lastly for the grade 2s, we have 4 copies of What Color Is Your Wish, Valsha Blonde. So she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this card is discarded from hand during your ride phase, you can Soul Blast one and put this card on the bottom of the deck and draw a card. So this is the lyrical version of this cycle card, but it's actually more useful in this deck than it is in a lot of other decks, since this first ability actually doesn't lose its usefulness after you hit grade 3 like it would in most decks, because you can discard her to ride from your ride deck like normal and activate this ability, or if you ride into Festa Magica Wilista, either initially on turn 3 or just Persona riding into her, and you use her on-ride ability to discard one and grab a gem from your soul or drop. If you discard Valsha Blonde for that skill's cost, you'll still be discarding her during your ride phase, so you can actually still activate this ability off of paying that cost as well. So this skill actually is still usable late game if you Persona Ride into Festa Magica again. You can use this ability to help draw and maintain that card advantage. So a useful skill made even more useful in this deck particularly. And then she also has our second auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Counterblast one to choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets a new continuous ability until end of turn that says all of your front row units get power plus 5,000. So a pretty nice power up ability as well. Now, it does cost another Counterblast, and this deck can get a little Counterblast heavy, especially if you're going for all your restanding skills. So you might not always have the resources to use this, but if you do, it can power up your entire front row, so that'll help with your restanding rear guards and strengthening all of those attacks. And another niche play you can do with this card is if you have your front row full of like Ophelia and Trixie or whatever, if you want to, you actually can call this card to your back row center rearguard circle and still activate this ability if you Persona Road that turn. So you can get the power up skill from it, and then you can just bottom deck this card to pay Ophelia's cost. So you don't necessarily have to squeeze her into the front row either. So yeah, overall just a very, very important card for this deck. So that's all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 3 copies of Tranquil Affection Elivira. So she has her auto ability that says when you play Everlasting Sapphire, if your Vanguard is Prismagica Wilista, you draw a card. So just some free card advantage, letting you draw for free whenever you play your order. And again, Illumirays will count for this ability since its name is treated as Sapphire's name. So very, very nice ability. I actually was running this card at 4 before, but I wound up dropping it down to 3 and bumping Valsha Blonde up to 4. And I found that to just work a little bit better. But yeah, it's pretty much player preference what you want to do with that. Alright, so next up we have our Sentinels, which has 3 copies of Diva of Refreshing Calm, Christine, which is your standard Perfect Guard, as well as 1 copy of the Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. And then our last grade 1 is 3 copies of our new gem in normal order, Crossing Illumirays. So it has this continuous ability that says during this fight. This card is also regarded as True-Hearted Ruby and Everlasting Sapphire. So like I said, its name is treated as both of them, so that makes it a lot easier to trigger all your different abilities. And then the actual order effect says that you can play this card if you have a Vanguard with Wilista in its card name. And it lets you put this card into your soul, draw a card, choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn it gets power plus 5,000. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets a new auto ability until end of turn that says when this unit attacks, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 grade 3 card with Wilista in its card name to choose one of your Rearguards and stand it. And then you cannot play orders this turn. So like I said, it does shut you down from playing any more orders in that same turn, so it will overwrite Autolee's ability. However, this is definitely the best gem in the deck, and this is the one you absolutely want to play every turn if you can only play one. Its own effect is basically an improved version of both the original Ruby and the original Sapphire, letting you give 5k to your Vanguard, as well as letting you draw, and then just shoving itself into the soul to pay your other costs later. So just playing this order is cost free, however the restanding part of this ability is a Counterblast 1 as well as needing you to Soul Blast a grade 3 Wilista. So if you go second, this ability can possibly be used on turn 3. Again, you have to use Trixie's ability or your Ride Line in order to get a grade 3 Wilista into your soul at that point. But if you can pull that off and you went second, so your opponent's at grade 3, you can get the restand off of this skill, as well as potentially the restand from Ophelia. So you can possibly get your full 5 attack combo on turn 3 with a little bit of setup. And then you should be able to pretty consistently get it from turn 4 onward just from getting your Persona rides. Which shouldn't be too hard in this deck, considering how much this deck draws, and of course Trixie potentially letting you dig for them as well. So overall, an absolutely fantastic card for this deck, probably the greatest new addition for the deck overall. Now, I am just running it at 3 copies since it is searchable off of the Ride Line and then loopable off of Festa Magica's ability. If you want to bump this up to 4, you can take out the original copies of Ruby and Sapphire. There really isn't much reason to run either of those. I'm mostly just doing it out of stubbornness more than anything. So if you want to drop the original gems and bump this up to 4 and then fill in that last slot with whatever else you want, you can absolutely feel free to do so. But overall, I think 3 copies is enough to make the deck function properly, since, like I said, you should be able to get a hold of this card whenever you need it, either from your deck or soul or drop. So that is all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s. First off, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 8 crit, 3 front, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 4 copies of Wings Dancing in the Blue Skies and Tia. So just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we also have 4 copies of Original Style El Shuka, also vanilla crits. If you want to run the effect crit, you can, but her skill isn't really needed for anything. Next up, we have 3 copies of Snowskip Palvi, the front with a skill. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. So your 20k shield front trigger. And then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Soft Light Pruel. Again, just the vanilla heal. As always, if you want to play any effect heals, you can. And then lastly, for our over trigger, we have 1 copy of Greatest Star Esperanza. So her additional effect says during this fight, you get, during your turn, all of your rearguards get power plus 10,000. So grants a skill to the fighter, powering up all your rearguards for the rest of the game. Very, very nice skill, as always, especially since you can restand your rearguards in this deck. Now, if you want to run either one of the nationless over triggers, you can go with them. It's pretty much just player preference, but I did decide just to stick with the lyrical over trigger. So then our last grade 0 cards are 1 copies of each of the original gem orders. So we have 1 copy of True-Hearted Ruby. So you can play it with a Counterblast 1, and it lets you draw 2 cards and choose a card from your hand and discard it, and then put this card into your soul. So you lose 2 and draw 2, so it's basically just a Counterblast 1 for a hand filter, which isn't the best thing in the world. especially with that counterblast cost. So again, this card isn't needed by any means. I'm mostly running it out of stubbornness. So if you have a copy of this in your hand along with Illumirays, and then you have Oddly on your board, you can do that play I mentioned earlier where you can play 2 orders in 1 turn. So you can go with that. Otherwise, this is just a good card to shove into your soul with Trixie's ability, or with your ride line if you get it early. So that will set up in your soul for later in case you do have to ride into Prismagica Wilista. It'll be another gem in there that you can Soul Blast out for her cost alongside Illumirays. But yeah, you actually don't end up playing this card very often. So yeah, if you want to drop this entirely and replace it with whatever else, you can feel free to do so. And the same goes for our last card in this deck, 1 copy of Everlasting Sapphire. So there's no cost to play it, and it lets you just choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 5,000 until the end of the turn, and then you put it into your soul. So better than Ruby, just because it doesn't cost a counterblast cost, but again, all it does is power up one of your units by 5k. So again, it's mostly just there to shove into the soul. You don't really want to play it very often, unless you just don't have anything else to play. So yeah, again, if you want to drop that, you can replace it with anything else. So that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And I think we'll fight Gosetsu this time. And we will be going second. Alright, so we'll go ahead and discard that crit to ride. And our starter skill will let us draw. And with that, I think I'll just go ahead and attack. We'll get a front trigger that is wasted. Yes, he calls out Inroad Shooter from his soul. So I think I'll let this one through. And I think I'll let that one through too. Alright, so we'll drop one of these Ophelias, I guess, to ride. And the grade 1 Wilista will let us put one from our hand into the soul. So we'll shove that crit in, I guess. And then we can search out a gem from our deck. So we'll go ahead and grab Crossing Illumirays. And we can play one of the copies of it from our hand, which will let us draw and give our Vanguard 5k. And then trigger Willista's ability to draw again. And of course, Illumirays went to our soul for later. So with that, I think I'm just going to go ahead and attack. And he revealed a Flagberg in his hand to call out his Ascendance Assault. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one through. And we get a heal trigger, which we do get. So we will heal 1. And he gets to restand Ascendance Assault, but he won't be able to hit unless he gets a trigger. So this can't hit either, he's just doing it to get his battle count up. So we'll let it through. And yeah, again, he's attacking with an attack that can't even hit, just to get the 4 attacks. Which actually won't help him any, because I don't have any rear guards for him to retire. And he only hit 4 attacks, so he won't get the guard restrict. So, let's see. I'll go ahead and let this one through, too. And yeah, he got no triggers anyway. Alright, so let's see, I am going to discard, and we'll drop Everlasting Sapphire to ride Festa Magica Wilista, and we'll use her skill to discard Valshablan, and we can add a gem from our drop to the hand, so we'll grab that. You know what, we'll go ahead and grab Sapphire right back, why not? And then Valshablan's ability, will also let us Soul Blast, and put her to the bottom of the deck, and draw. So then I'm going to call Elivira over here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and use Willis's Activate ability since we have Illumiraze in the Soul. So we'll Soul Blast it out, and we can check the top 5, and we can call 2. So we'll call Trixie, and we'll put that Christine behind the Vanguard so we can cycle it back in. So we'll have some temporary deck thinning at least. And Wilista also gains 15 key. So that lets us trigger Trixie's ability. So we can put a card from our hand into the Soul, so we'll shove that Sapphire in there. And now we can check the top 5, and we did find a copy of Festa Magica Wilista. So we'll add her to our hand. So let's see, I'm going to call Ophelia over here. And we'll call another Elivira as well. And then we can play Crossing Illumiraze. So we get to draw. And gain 5k. And trigger both of our Elivira's abilities. To draw 2 more times. And let's see, with that I think we are ready to go. Now, unfortunately, we did not get a grade 3 Wilista into the Soul, so we can only get 4 attacks this turn. But that's okay, so we'll go ahead and attack with Ophelia first, boosted by Elivira. He lets that one through. So then we'll attack with Wilista. Let's that one through too. And we get a crit trigger. So crit to the Vanguard, and we'll give that power to Trixie. And now Ophelia's ability will give her an extra 15k. And let us Counter Blast and send our back row center rear guard back into the deck to restand her. So then we'll attack with Ophelia once again. And he guards. So then we'll attack with Trixie. Oh, and he guards with his over trigger. So he did survive, but we got him to 5. But he does get his persona right. And he will get his full 5 attacks this turn because he got Inlet Pulse. So we'll guard that with that crit. Now Inlet Pulse gets to restand himself. So let's see, we'll guard that one. And we'll guard with that heal. And now Ascendant's Assault will get to restand as well. So I'm gonna let that one through. And we'll guard that with that crit as well. And since he got his 5 attacks, he'll get to retire 2 of our rear guards, and draw, and gain 10k, and have guard restrict. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that one through. And no triggers, nice. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride with Festa Magica Wilista, and we will use her ability to go ahead and discard. Let's see, we could discard Valshablon, but I kind of want to save her for her second ability. I think we'll drop Trixie, actually. And now we can add Illumirays from our drop to our hand. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and call Ottilie over here. And then we'll use Willista's Activate ability and Soul Blast out Illumirays. And then we get to check the top 5. And I think I'm just going to call Elivira off of this ability. But I'll still gain the 15k. And then we'll plop Ophelia over here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and call Valshablon over top of one of these Eliviras, just so we can use her ability and Counter Blast. And our entire front row will gain 5k. So then we'll go ahead and play Crossing Illumirays. So we draw our over trigger. and power up our Vanguard and trigger all these abilities. So Auto-Lee's skill will give her another 10 key. And then our 2 Elgatos will let us draw. And with that, I think we're all set up. So now we can attack with Auto-Lee first, not boosted. And the perfect guards. So then we'll attack with Ophelia, again not boosted. The perfect guards again. So then we'll attack with Wilista. And we can use the ability granted by Illumirays to let her Counterblast and Soul Blast a grade 3 Wilista. And we can restand Auto-Lee. Oh wow, and he perfect guards again. That's 3 perfect guards in a row. But we get a crit trigger. So I'm going to give both those effects to Auto-Lee, actually. So now Ophelia's ability will activate, giving her 15k. And then we can Counterblast and send Valshablon to the bottom to restand her. So now I'm going to attack with Auto-Lee, boosted by Elgato, for a whopping 56,002 crit. And he's got to let it through. And that crit does not help him any, so we got him with that one. So there you go, that was version 2 of my Wilista deck. This deck is definitely a lot stronger than it was before, thanks mostly to that new gem card and also her dress-up form. So anyway, I will be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I'll be doing version 2 of my Clarissa deck, continuing along with the various dress-up decks. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.